Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today on our session to help students better understand how the past informs the present with NewsBank's Historical Newspapers resource. My name is Katherine Bergerson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at NewsBank, and I'll be joined today by my colleague, Matt Stawicki. We're so happy to have so many familiar faces here today. This is the third in our Core 4 series, and thank you for continuing to join us and be here with us today. Just to let you know, the session is being recorded. We'll send out a copy of the presentation following today's event. Also, all of our contact information and the resources we share with you today are available in the handout section. It says Handouts 1 of 5 in the little gray bar. If you click on that, you can download it at any time. So right now, with so many issues going on in the world, it's a perfect time to look at how the past informs current issues and what's happening in our world today, and how you can best leverage America's historical newspapers to support discussions and assignments relevant to your community, school, or district curriculum. I'd quickly like to share our agenda for today. We have an overview of the rich collection, what it includes, and what really makes America's historical newspapers unique. We'll show you how to search and use the timeline in order to pinpoint the most relevant information to your area of interest. And we'll share some ideas about how to build visibility to the resource, including some ready-to-use ideas that you can use right away to connect with students, teachers, or your own assignments. We will have time for questions and answers throughout the presentation, so please feel free to use that question box. It's another one of those gray bars. If you see the question box there, submit it at any time, and we'll pause throughout the session and do our best to get to all of them. To begin, just a quick background on NewsBank. We are a leading news and information provider for research institutions, schools, and libraries. And we're proud to share with you that this month, actually this October, we are celebrating our company's 50th anniversary. We're so proud of that milestone. We aggregate sources from around the world, bringing you and your teachers and students credible, vetted, global news sources, many of which are unique to NewsBank, and all are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from any device, which is so important in today's world, as we know. Now, let's take a walk through the resource. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Matt Stawicki. He is the Vice President of Sales for K-12 schools and community colleges. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Catherine, and thank you for the beautiful introduction. So yeah, today we're going to look at the America's historical newspapers. This is another one of the flagship products for NewsBank. Many schools, districts, for that matter, college and universities use this throughout the United States and even internationally. This resource, it's made up of over 440 historical newspapers from across the United States. The full edition of the newspaper is loaded for each of those sets that we include. So it has the advertisements, the cartoons, the classified, everything that was basically printed in that newspaper from day one is there. Okay, so it's really just a lot of fun to not just use for research purposes, but just to explore on your own. On that, let's get started so we can dig in and I can kind of show you around. All right, you see my screen now?
We do.
Okay, great. So this is our landing page for the historical newspaper package. And then you'll note right here, we've got a historical timeline, and the content from this database goes from 1690, okay, which is the very first newspaper ever published in the US, all the way through to 2000, okay? You'll note it highlights every major era in history, and it really does align with your typical US history studies, okay? If I open up, for example, this first era, okay, you'll note it has 3 columns of information, okay? Government, military, political events, social, cultural issues, discoveries, inventions, and firsts, okay? So example, if I wanted to look at the very first newspaper published, I can click here and it gives me a summary of what that event was. And every entry on the timeline has this type of a summary. That's followed by primary source documents that were pulled from this timeline, from this error, I should say, in history, and then that's followed by additional searches, okay? So if I wanted to look at what was the mission of the very first newspaper, I could click on this, and there it is. It opens up that article, and that was clipped off of the page already, okay? So this came from Public Occurrences, the very first newspaper published in the US, September 25th, 1690, 332 years ago. And we're looking at that paper exactly the way it was published that day, okay? You have tools for the user right here. I can view more articles from within the timeline. And as you can see, it highlights the one I'm actually viewing right now. I can search the issue or the page for more information. And the reason that shows up is I have not just page 1, but page 2 and 3, as you can see here by the thumbnails and by this pull down. So I can search that issue for more information. And you'll see it just opens up a keyword search bar, okay? Information on where this article is being pulled from. So this is being pulled from page 1. I can create the citation and export it to EasyBib, RefWorks, or Noodle Tools. So example is there's that MLA 8 citation. I can copy and paste that as well. I can email this. So who do I want to send it to? From me. If I want to put a message, I can. When I hit send, it will send the link to this actual article. I can clip a piece of this off, and I'll show you how to use that at a later point in time. I can print the full page or a clip. I can download. I can copy the link. This is a Doro link. So when I click copy, it will always go to this article. So I can email it to a student, to a teacher, to a parent for that matter. When they click on it, it will always open to this article. We have the ability to download it into Google Classroom. We also do work with other LMS systems. And then again, I can peruse the whole paper. So I can go to the next page. Okay, I can click and use my thumbnails if I wish. So if I wanted to look at page 1, I simply click the thumbnail, and there's actually page 1, that very first newspaper that was published. This newspaper was published one day because after the British saw what was printed, they decided they did not like it, and they went and burnt down the presses. I'll click and go back to my timeline. You'll note that all of these work exactly the same. So example, if I go into Gilded Age, okay, again, government, military, social, cultural, discoveries, inventions, and firsts. Now you'll note, even though this does align with US history studies, this gets into science, Thomas Edison, right? Okay. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. We're getting into the literature. Okay. We're getting into social items. Coca-Cola, the soft drink, was made here. But here's something that would hit home. Talk about using the past to help inform the present. Ellis Island, 1892. Ellis Island opened, right? So there's that summary. There's our articles, and just how I might use this. Example is I can click on these pro and con cartoons. So here is a cartoon, and I'll make that a bit smaller for you, of Uncle Sam holding back the wall, printed out of the Philadelphia Inquirer, 1903. And if I click on my view more articles, here is a pro-immigration cartoon. Uncle Sam with his hands wide open, welcoming everybody, right? Printed out of the Wyoming State Tribune, 1917. a great way to illustrate to students how what's going on with immigration today is nothing new. It's been there since immigration started, okay? And since Ellis Island opened. Now, say I didn't find what I was looking for, around Ellis Island. As I mentioned, you've got these searches. So I could simply, for example, naturalization and citizenship. I could run that search. And that's a search that our editorial team, of course, has already created for us. And that brings me to a good set of results, just 290 results. And then I've got these filters down the sidebar that would allow me to further filter the information. It defaults to the newest. I could resort it to oldest or best match. I could put in my own set of dates, okay? So I can go, if there's specific years I'm looking for, I can put in those specific years or a specific day, okay? These are all newspapers, so that's the only source type you're going to find. Here, this tells me my results by year. And you can see, I can click on this, and that options will allow me to look at everything. And if I resort it, oh, what happened in 1922? Okay, we've got 22 results there. That's the biggest result set. I could simply click and look at what happened in 1922 by hitting apply. I could look for a specific source name, and again, more options would allow me just to begin typing in a title. So I could look for a specific title if I wish, just by typing it in right here. Okay. As you can see, it'll just narrow down for me. Source location. Again, we're pulling information from across the United States. So you could go to a specific state. Now, depending on the search and the information and the dates of the information, sometimes you will not have information from a specific state because maybe they didn't even have a newspaper back then, for example. Okay. It's mainly English, but you will find a splattering of some other languages. Okay. Article type. So when we digitized this information, there were times where we actually cut out articles and identified the type of articles they are. In this case, whether they're news or letters. Okay. We can go to an era in history. We can go to a presidential era. So you've got multiple filters you can use when you do that search. And of course, when you open up your document, you will see that it's the exact same landing page that we just looked at. But example, maybe they're talking about record number of immigration that came in, and maybe I want to clip out this caption and use this caption in my essay. Here's where that clip function comes in handy. If I say select clip, what that allows me to do is it opens up a box. I can then size this box and then print it, download it, or save it to Google. So if I download it, it will also allow me to include the citation. So now what's happening is it's going to clip this caption directly off of that page and create a nice clean PDF for me to use. So as you can see, it clipped it right off. I've got my caption and I've got my citation right here. So very, very easy to use. Everything in this timeline works the same way, regardless of what era in history you go to, okay? Any questions on the timeline before I move on? Okay, I'll continue to move on. So you can also keyword search this database. So example is we just looked at Ellis Island. So if I wanted to look at information around immigration, I can simply keyword that in there, hit search, and now that brings me a big set of results, okay? But this time without any additional filters. So I can really get down to the nitty gritty, all right? And now I can use my filters again. So if I'm looking for what's happening in immigration in Texas, for example, okay, there's my source, my location. So I can click on Texas, and here now I've got the information from Texas only, okay? Now I could go further, of course, and I can pick a specific city within Texas. And in this case, we've got historical documents, okay, from 17 cities. And of course, Dallas being one of the bigger cities, Fort Worth, we've got more information, right? But an example, if I wanted to go to something that I know is closer to the border, I could go San Antonio, for example, hit apply. So now I'm getting information just from San Antonio, okay? So it makes it very, very easy for me to look at this article. And again, same tools. It highlights my search term, okay? And I've got the entire paper loaded, okay? So I can make it smaller and larger and clip that out. Now, I had mentioned how much fun these historical newspapers are because they have everything in them. And you'll see, especially when you use your thumbnails, okay, how you can slide and all of a sudden, oh, what is this? It looks like it might be an advertisement. So I can click on that, okay, and here it is. It's loading up a worksheet, okay, an advertisement with free gifts and so on from Dillard's, right? I can click here, this next one, all right, and it just makes it so much fun. Okay, look at this. We can buy a 2021 Grand Am, okay, for $1,875. It just makes it so fun to look at these things. And again, compare the past to the present. Some of the projects I know I've heard is teachers telling their students to grab an advertisement from today's newspaper and compare it to a newspaper from the past. The Billy Joel song, We Didn't Start the Fire, playing that song and handing the students the lyrics and telling them to pick an event or a person out of that song and give me a one-page essay on it. So lots of things you can do with this, okay? Any questions that we might have?
Hi, Matt. Yes, thank you. We do have several coming in. Could you clarify the image search ability?
I'm sorry.
Maybe a little bit more information about searching images.
Oh, about searching images. Okay, so with keyword searching, okay, especially historical documents, it can be tough. Okay, especially from older documents. So I'll give you an example is if I wanted to get information on the Constitution, okay, it's spelled C-O-N-S. Now you'll note in the letter where the S should be, I put a question mark, okay? There's a reason for that. So I'm gonna hit search, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull back information on the Constitution, okay? Now, it automatically defaults to newest, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to resort this to the oldest, just so that I can show you why I put that question mark in there. Okay. Historical documents, again, historically, everything was hand type set. Okay. So if I click on this very first article, you'll see that this article, and you may not be able to see this clear yet, but you will in a moment. It came from the Boston Newsletter, December 25th, 1704. Okay, quite an old document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to page 1 and just load page 1 to give you a better illustration of that question mark. Note right here, the Boston, B-O, that's supposed to be a letter S, T-O-N. And that is actually a letter S. It's called the long S. And when things were hand typeset in the middle of words, okay, the head or the tail of the regular letter S would regularly break off. So they created this long S, as it's called. That question mark allows me to look for any character that existed right there. So I would get my search Constitution and get all my older documents as well. Okay, so that's just happened to be one of the many search tips for searching historical documents. Our resource center on our website does have a document that gives you additional search tips that I think you might find helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. We do have another question. Let me see. If I don't find something on the timeline, are there other options for searching, or perhaps it's there, but not necessarily where I'm looking on the timeline?
Right. Yes, yes. Give you a quick example of that. I'll go into World War II here. So one of the services that we provide for all of our customers is if you're looking for something on the timeline and you don't find it, regardless of what it is, if you let us know what that item is, we'll create it and we will add it to the timeline for you. Now, an example of that is last year, one of our customers came to us and said, our students are doing a project on girls professional baseball. Can you help us? It takes about a month for us to create this, but what we did, for example, is created this entry and added it to the timeline for them. Now, this also gives me the ability to show you something else that we're doing that's new. With these events, we've written many of these events, and there's well over 1,500 events on the timeline. What we're beginning to do is go back and look at the summary that we wrote, and we're adding comprehension questions, and we're also adding some suggestions for additional projects and things to help maybe encourage the students to search a little more, dig a little deeper, okay? So we're adding these comprehension questions to those summaries, but you'll see here, there's our primary source content that we built around women's baseball, girls professional baseball. And when I click on the article, you'll see here's that article, the Rockford Peaches, right? Send the daisies packing, okay? So we did the exact same thing, including not just pulling the articles to support the document, but including the additional searches, okay? So we will add these for you anytime you need. Additionally, since I brought up that comprehension question for you, okay, if you know that you're studying or you're going to use something within the next 9 weeks or so out of the timeline, and you look at the event and it doesn't have those comprehension questions, let us know. If there's something you want us to add comprehension questions to that are not there already, we'll move them to the top of our list. I hope that answers that question.
That's wonderful. And that actually is a great segue into those comprehension questions. Can you tell us more about those, or show us again how you find those?
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to go into, actually, I'll go into World War I this time. Okay. So example, past to present, the great influenza pandemic, we can compare that to COVID, right? So when you go in, you've got this summary, which is basically a secondary source, not a primary source, because that's what we wrote to give you a summary of what that event or that person in history was. When you click to read more, that will open up the rest of that summary, and then that summary is followed by those comprehension questions and those suggestions for those additional projects.
Excellent, thank you. And then we have a question about advanced searching. Melissa, thank you for this question. Is there an advanced search option, or do you add terms in the search bar?
There is not in this resource. You've only got the single search box here. So if you wanted to do an advanced search, for example, you might do something like immigration and, of course, link it with something else, for example, and I'm just going to type Texas, and I really don't know what kind of results I get. The tough part, again, with historical newspapers is because of the nature of them, they're, can be very rough depending on how old they are. The print type is different, and they can only be OCR'd, which is, optimal character recognition. So it's not going to see everything you have. So the searching with historical images is not going to be as accurate as it is with full text articles. It does work, okay, but to do that advanced searching like I just did, immigration and Texas, you'll have to use linkers and know how to use them. And then use these filters to further filter your data.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for those great questions. Please keep them coming. And if you think of something, we can always go back to it. But Matt, thank you so much for that wonderful demonstration. And now that we know really how to search and pinpoint information, I'd love to share with you some ideas on how to actually get it into the hands of students, teachers, your colleagues. So here are our top 5 strategies to build awareness to engage users with America's historical newspapers. And many of these are ready to use. Again, I'm going to plug the handout section. You can download them right now. Feel free to copy and paste them, or feel free to customize them for your school, library, district, or class. We certainly encourage you to use these as templates or guides, or however works best for your situation. Number 1 tip, okay, build that online web presence. Of course, the more places that you can add links, the more likely that people will discover the resource. So if you do a featured resource of the month or a did you know, here you can actually see a school in Ohio placed it in one of their sections called History, Geography, and Culture. We have other examples from schools in Connecticut that created a section with all of their NewsBank resources together. Another example is York High School in Illinois. They placed it in their primary sources and history section. So we have graphics and brief product descriptions that you can use, again, copy and paste or customize it. You can see we've got all different options and how different schools are using it. But again, the more access points, and I know this seems like a no-brainer, but truly, the more access points that you have, it is truly more likely that people will use the resource. Number 2, scavenger hunts. Easy way to get students right into the resource with our ready-to-use scavenger hunt. You can download this, you can share the link, and it's a great way to get students to begin learning how to search and how to navigate America's historical newspapers. Teachers tell us that it's really a popular introductory activity when they're first starting out using the resource. Number 3, and this was a great question, someone asked this earlier, do NewsBank resources integrate with Discovery Service or learning management systems like Blackboard or Canvas? And yes, we're so pleased to tell you that we have a robust resource center that has PDFs, video instructions on how to add articles to your assignments, and it's step by step, all different. No matter what it is that you are hoping to accomplish, we hope that we have that information there, but it is a very robust website. So please take a look at that, and if there's anything else that we can add to it, reach out to us. As Matt said, we want to continue to add and grow and make it easy for you to use our step-by-step guides and the information that we have in order to integrate the NewsBank links and articles into your LMS and or get the topics and the information that's important to you into your classroom. So please let us know if there are ways that we can add and enhance that. Number 4, video views. Video, you likely know this, is the number 1 way to engage students. We have brief videos and how to use videos for America's historical newspapers and all NewsBank resources. But specifically for America's historical newspapers, feel free, please add this to your website, near the resource, your YouTube page, post it on social media, perhaps send it out in an e-newsletter to remind colleagues and students who need a quick refresher on the resource. It's a brief 2 to 3 minute overview, but helps just keep it front of mind for people. And I often recommend combining the scavenger hunt and this video together and sending them out, and it helps people really be able to navigate on their own. Number 5, host a hands-on training. NewsBank offers complimentary hands-on trainings for all of our resources to help best fit your needs. So we encourage you to please gather a group at your school or your district, and Matt and his team will customize a presentation to specifically speak to the questions of your district or your school. So please do reach out to us and schedule that complimentary training session for your team. I've got a couple of other bonus ideas, so those are my top 5, but I also love to share things that we've learned from librarians and other customers. Using social media, or again, your e-newsletters, as a way to keep resources top of mind. Here you can see a few examples of how other schools made some fun social media posts about how they used America's historical newspapers with students. And you can use this also as a fun addition to a district e-newsletter, or just a little nugget, and it helps keep the resource top of mind for people. Then these are some of my favorites. And again, if you download the presentation, there are links to these 2 videos right here. These are 2 quick stories from some librarians. The first is Elizabeth Alexander. She is a librarian with Bishop Gorman Catholic Schools in Texas. And in this brief clip, she talks about how she uses Access World News and America's historical newspapers to develop what she calls critical users of information, which is just so important and so critical these days, particularly in developing those critical thinking skills. And the second is a quick story from Kelly Vikstrom Hoyt, and she's with the Overlake School in Washington State. She was actually the News Literacy Project's 2021 Educator of the Year, and she shares her story about using NewsBank to teach information literacy and how she helps distinguish between what she calls reputable, vetted sources versus search engines like Google or Bing or Yahoo or something else, and really helps students understand the difference between those credible vetted sources and understanding bias in the news. So I certainly encourage you to check out their stories and how they are using NewsBank resources to help their students. I'll also send those 2 videos as links in our follow-up email. So if you don't have a chance to download this or any trouble downloading the document, I will have them in a follow-up email to you tomorrow. I'd like to show you one more thing here. We have our resource centers that Matt mentioned. You can find them at newsbank.com. And again, the top 5 tips that I talked about, we have those and many more bookmarks you can print out, those search tips. This resource center is very robust, and we hope that you find it helpful and usable. And again, I encourage you to perhaps send this to whomever puts together your school or staff newsletters or updates. They may find some information in here that's valuable too. So those are my top 5 tips for engagement, along with some others that we've learned from librarians along the way. And I'd like to pause here to see if there are any questions. Let's see. So Julie, thank you very much for your question. Would like more information. Her campus and school is virtual and would like to learn more about using it, not necessarily in the library. So Julie, thank you very much for that question. And I think that that's something that Matt and his team can follow up with you one-on-one to discuss.
Yes, we can, we'll reach out and get more information and work with Julie on that to see what kind of maybe LMS they're using and so on.
Excellent. And yes, our resources are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we will definitely connect with you and see where we can find a good fit. Any other questions? Let's see. Here's a great question. Sharon is asking, Matt, are there any articles in Spanish in this database?
Yes, there are. Let me click here. It is primarily English, okay, but let me just do this for you. What I'm doing is I just click search, and what that does is that loads up, and you'll see we've got over 200 million documents in here. And what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go down here to language and just click more options. And this way you can see that. So in this case, we've got 263,000 documents in Spanish. All right. So if you were to do a search term in Spanish,
Matt,
okay.
can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yeah.
Matt and Abby. Abby, can you make Matt the presenter again so they can see his screen? I'm so sorry. Thank you. And thank you to
so sorry.
Sharon for reminding us that, about that. Thank you.
Let me jump back and do this again then. Yep.
Sure.
So Sharon, what I did, historical newspapers. Okay. Here we go. What I did is keyword search just to show you here. So here you'll see over 200 million documents, and I'm going to click down here, and this shows you we've got 7 different languages. Okay, 263,000 in Spanish. So I just clicked the apply, and you'll see here we're getting content in Spanish. Okay, now you may get content in both Spanish and English because the metadata behind the scenes tells us that we got that newspapers that we're pulling that information from comes in multiple languages. Okay, the language in the database is primarily English though.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. Well, if you think of other questions, we've got about 6 more minutes left in our time together. So please continue to submit them, or if we weren't able to get to them today, or you think of something as we hang up, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Up next, Matt and I invite you to our upcoming webinar to round out our core 4 sessions. We will be presenting Getting to Know Research Rocket. That is our resource for our youngest or most beginner researchers, and that is on Thursday, October 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We hope that you'll join us. There'll be a link in the follow-up email, or again, if you download this presentation in the handout section, there's a link there too. And again, if you have a colleague that you think would benefit, we encourage you to share the invitation or the link. Today's presentation is just one step in our commitment to working with you. I encourage you to please refer back to the document that we shared today or the email that you'll receive tomorrow. If you have any trouble accessing that information or a particular web page, shoot us an email and we will be happy to send it over to you, because we really want you to get those links to the customized training session, customer service, the resource centers, those LMS integrations, and more. They're all right here, so you don't have to spend a lot of time searching around for them. We want you to get right to those web pages. I'm going to do one last quick check for questions. We do have one, Matt, that can we clarify a point on articles cleared of copyright? Thank you for asking that, Hector. So a clarification on articles cleared of copyright.
Yes. So whenever you subscribe to actually any of the NewsBank databases, there is a license that all of our users do sign and return. I'm sure we have that from whoever asked that question. That gives you the right to use any and all of these documents as long as they're for school purposes, and you don't have to worry about any violation of copyright or anything like that. So as long as it's for school purposes, you have the right to use these documents any way you wish.
Excellent. Hector, thank you for asking that. That's a great question. Well, group, we hope you found today's training session valuable and that you have some actionable ways to reach out to your teachers and students right away. As you log out today, you'll see a brief survey. Please take a moment. Let us know what you thought about today's session, how we can improve in the future. And on behalf of the NewsBank team, thank you. Thank you for sharing part of your day with us. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.